let's start with, I suppose, the fundamentals. A management rights agreement is a contract. Simple, entered into between a body corporate and a manager. Now, those contracts have terms, the same as a lease. So that's the analogy I'm going to use for this little part of this conversation. And it probably falls out of the back of the motel industry to a degree, but a management rights agreement is not a lease, but it's got some of the same fundamentals. So that is that there's an agreement between two parties which goes for an actual period. So in management rights context, we've got two things that are really relevant in terms of standard residential management rights. And they're the modules that your building might be regulated by. So under a standard module, a management rights agreement can be for a maximum term of 10 years, and under an accommodation module, it can be for a maximum term of 25. If you happen to be in the commercial module, which is really retail and obviously office strata, then that's also a 25-year maximum term. Now, whether the agreement goes for that term is something else entirely. And so one of the things that happens is that these things are entered into and they're varied over time. So one of the things that I suppose this is a bit of a family job, this one, is that we've been doing. So I've got a 13-year-old daughter who used to use Lego a lot. We haven't got rid of it all, given most of it away, but we found a little bit. And my wife has exercised her creativity to come up with this prop today. So if you look at it like that, let's pretend for a minute that that's a 10-year period. So at some stage we'll do this as an animation, but for right now, this is what we've got to do. So that's a 10-year period. So it might start on the 1st of June 2021 and expire on the 31st of May 2020 or 2031, 10-year period. Now, if it's a straight 10-year term, all well and good. What quite often happens, though, in management rights is that these things are actually broken down into an initial term and an option period. So let's take this particular agreement. We've got a standard module agreement. It's a 5-year term with a 5-year option period. So what that means is that if this option is actually exercised, then the agreement goes for 10 years. But what you need to do is actually exercise it. So that's the first thing I'm talking about today, is exercising options. So the next thing I'm going to be talking about is, again, we've got this agreement, and just because it makes it nice and easy in terms of zeros, let's say it started in 2020, ended in 2030. What happens is that obviously over time, the agreement expires. It disappears. So when we get to 2025, what happens, if the Lego doesn't break, is you've only got 5 years to go. So what has to happen, or what should happen from a management rights perspective, is you want to make sure that you go and add another period at the back end of that agreement, which is this little new purpley one, to take you from 2025 through to 2035. And that is a variation to the agreement. So that first one, our yellow one, what we've got to do is actually exercise this option for it to come into existence if it's broken up that way. And then what we've got to do after that is to add more term to it. And they are two completely different things. So it's the same as a lease. If you're in a Westfield, you've got a lease from Westfield for your actual shop. It runs for 5 years. At some period of time, you'll go in there and say to Westfield, hey, I'd like to get some more option term, please. And they'll grant that to you, or they don't. And that is one of the key things for management rights, because if you don't exercise, I'll click my Lego back together, that yellow option, your agreement comes to an end. So then you've got nothing.